Welcome everybody to the second annual Viet Story Slam hosted by Vietnamese Boat People podcast. My name is Tracy Nguyen Meng. I am the founder of the Vietnamese Boat People podcast. We're also a nonprofit, and I'm going to be your host for this evening.
Hi, I'm Richard Luong. I am the Director of Institutional Advancement at Rising for Justice and a proud member of the VBP team. A quick big shout out to all the amazing humans on the VBP team. I'm so honored to work alongside all of you. And I will be your co-host tonight alongside Tracy.
Great, thanks, Richard. And for those of you guys who are joining us for the first time and don't really know who we are or what we do, as I mentioned, we are a podcast. We're also a nonprofit 501c3 organization. And our mission is to document and preserve the stories of the Vietnamese diaspora for multiple generations. And we've been around for almost 3 years, believe it or not. And we are a team of volunteers. We're all doing this on our spare time because we believe in the mission. We're passionate about our stories. And this is our time. This is the time where our stories deserve to be heard and we're getting the attention and our voices are being elevated. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have with us 7 amazing storytellers. And so earlier this year, we had an open call for story submissions. We got a ton across the United States, even some globally. And in front of you are 7 storytellers that we chose because their stories are funny, inspiring, and heartwarming. So I think you're going to love what you see and hear tonight. So what I'd like to do is let them introduce themselves very quickly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anthony Nguyen, calling from Antioch, California.
Hi, everyone. My name is Belle To Tam Tan Le, and I am from San Jose, California.
Hi everyone, my name is Kyle Nguyen and I'm from Garden Grove, California.
Oops. Just, Leo, you're on mute. There you go.
Hi everybody, my name is Leo Nguyen. I'm currently in Washington, D.C. and I am not wearing pants.
Just kidding. No, good.
Hi, everyone. I'm Naoko Sonoda. I currently reside in Greater Seattle, Washington State.
What's up, everybody? I'm Vin from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yen, and I call San Diego, California home.
So first up, we have Kyle Wing, who is from Los Angeles, California. Kyle was born and raised in Orange County, California. He is currently a 3rd-year sociology major with a minor in Asian American studies at UCLA. He plans to pursue a dual master's in social welfare and public health and hopes to become a child and family social worker in the future. Let's take a look at Kyle's story.
Bodies, forged on mountaintops, nurtured by fairies, and hardened by dragons. I remember the stories that Dad would tell me at night. He would weave tales of deities harnessing the elements in battle. I remember one god in particular being able to freeze an entire tidal wave. Every night, I lay there in awe at his ability to transport me to a world beyond worlds, each one different from the last. I remember anticipating new stories while relishing the repeats, and grew up to revere a people to which I was intimately tied by blood, struggle, and loss. Bodies with tan, sun-dried skin wandering the streets of Little Saigon. She used to be a famous singer, Dad told me when I noticed her on our drive back home. She sleeps on the side of the takeout place that I was raised on. I think about her often. I think about her and others like her, especially in a time like this, a time in which their vulnerability is heightened and they become so hyper-visible, yet so unseen. I wonder if she remembers how beautiful she was, is. I wonder if her family thinks of her as much as I do. In times like this, I wonder if it is easier to forget than it is to remember. Bodies, ravaged by disease and brutalized by the hands of men. My mind is flooded with news of attacks against us, for a virus that we did not create, for a virus that others prolong. I weep for my brothers and sisters. I weep for our children, for our elders. I weep for new souls who cannot make sense of this violence, and I weep for old souls for whom it only makes sense. I weep and yearn for the future. Bodies, lost in racial purgatory, only to become pawns in this game with no end. Ye, gum, are you ashamed? What do you feel when you see red and yellow proudly strung up next to a flag that has nothing to be proud of? What do you feel when you see our black and brown brothers and sisters murdered by people who will never see you as one of them? You can hide all you want behind your money, but there will always be things that you cannot afford, things that cost a life, yours or otherwise. Bodies, 6 feet under, velvet and wood separating them from the same dirt that forms us. For such magical beings, our bodies were so fragile. As difficult as it was to swallow, I came to realize death is truly the greatest of equalizers. Growing up, I was terrified. I was terrified of losing those I loved. I was terrified of dying myself. Now, the only thing that I have to be scared of is not being on the right side of history.
Kyle, that was so beautiful. I mean, I just want to ask you first, are you a poet? Like, have you been writing poetry for a long time?
No, actually, I got into creative writing this past fall quarter. I took an Asian American creative writing class, so it's actually really recent. Thank you. Yeah, so it's actually a really recent development, I guess.
Do you think it's all the stuff that was happening last year that just inspired you to go into creative writing?
Yeah, I honestly, as you could probably hear from the poem, I think I was definitely inspired by everything that was happening, all the current events and stuff, COVID and anti-Asian violence and all that. And I feel like I just kind of found a way that I wanted to express myself, much like everyone else here. So yeah.
Wow, no, it is so beautiful. And I'd love for you to just tell the audience a little bit about, the bodies that you keep repeating throughout the poetry and what that represents.
Mm-hmm. I think when I first started writing this poem, I guess I'll just backtrack a bit. I feel like definitely in the Vietnamese community and the Southeast Asian community in general, the way we kind of form memory and remember and forget, it's very fragmented. And I feel like that's kind of a point of inspiration for me. That's why the poem was very chronological, and it was chronological, but it was also fragmented in that sense, So the bodies that I'm talking about, I was talking about this unhoused woman that I remembered from my childhood. I was remembering the stories that my dad would tell me when we would go to sleep, about Vietnamese gods and all of that, and just all of that. And then I brought it to more currently, about anti-Asian violence and, the bodies and the people, our elders that are, being attacked and all of that. So I feel like that was just I kind of wanted to convey that, I kind of wanted to convey that there are things that we choose to remember and we choose to forget, and that's okay, right? And you kind of take with you and you bring what's important with you in your life. And yeah, I also want to shout out really quickly if I can. My professor, her name is Tu Hung Wing Wa, and she wrote this piece on memory and forgetting in the Vietnamese community. I think it's called Between Forking Paths or Through Forking Paths. I really recommend people to read her work. She's super inspirational, super philosophical, and she's going to come out with a book too soon. So yeah.
Oh, great. Put it in the chat so that we can all follow it. Oh, thank you so much, Kyle. And everything that you described, it was actually what I got from the poem. I felt like the fragments of memory that was happening and kind of piecing all the different complexities of things that are happening around you in today. And so I'm trying to make sense of that. So it was beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And by the way, you got a shout out for the teddy bears on your sweater in that video.
I'll link that too. I'll link the sweater. It was probably the
There's
wrong
a
choice.
fashion fan out there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kyle.
Yeah, no, I definitely need the bear sweater. That's the top of my list. Our second storyteller tonight is Belle Lay. She was born in Saigon, Vietnam, and raised in San Jose, California. She currently is pursuing a BFA in drama at the University of North Carolina School of Arts. And Dung Sa Em Dam Nay is her favorite song to sing for karaoke. If we had more time, I feel like that's just a different event, right? Let's get into Belle's story.
I think every Vietnamese American would agree when I say that living in the States means navigating two very different worlds. That was very frustrating for me because when I was 11, I realized that I was very depressed. I asked my parents if I could go to therapy, and they said no, that you're not calm, only crazy people go to therapy. And what you're going through, we went through, so you're okay. A couple years pass, and I am 17 now, and I was just having a lot of trouble wanting to be alive. So I had to sit my parents down and I said, Ma'am, if you want me to be alive, you need to let me go to therapy. So they did. And when I was 19, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. You're usually put on mood stabilizers or SSRIs. I didn't tell them that I was on psychiatrics because I knew they would be so against it. So I accepted that this was going to be a journey that I had to go on by myself. So I just didn't tell them at all. When I came home for a break, they saw me taking my medication. They told me that they were very disappointed and that they just didn't understand why I was doing this to myself. In that moment, I was like, why can't you see that I am trying to make very responsible decisions to take care of myself? It felt like my parents were so against me wanting to stay alive. I just had to be okay with that for a sec. I had to be okay with them being disappointed in me and not approving of how I decided to live my life. I was home for a very, very, very long time this year because of quarantine. Through COVID and quarantine and isolation and things like that, my bipolar disorder was very active and ebbing and flowing while I was at home. And through that, my parents saw how much work, how much maintenance, and how much patience it took to deal with my bipolar disorder. One day, my mom came home from work and she gave me this bottle. It's a plastic blue, very simple water bottle, but it is also a pill organizer. And I don't think she knew what was going on in my head at all, because this is what it is, and it's convenient, and that's why she gave it to me. But to me, this water bottle was her telling me, I understand how hard it is, and I am ready to support you. And that is just something that I never thought I would get to feel and experience. Yeah, so that's my little story about this water bottle, and thank you so much for listening.
Wow, and thank you, Belle, so much for sharing your personal story. You touch on so many topics. In particular, navigating two different worlds was something that really spoke to me. Mental health is such an important topic to explore, especially with this month, not just being a PI Heritage Month, it's also Mental Health Awareness Month. And mental health still seems to be a very taboo subject in many communities, including ours. And I guess my first question for you is for those watching who are still navigating that space and finding out ways to get support, what advice do you have?
Yes, absolutely. I think the most important thing above everything is knowing that what your parents say isn't the truth. And I think recognizing that we probably grew up in very different environments, and that definitely affects worldviews and points of views and things like that. And I think the next step is to absolutely get help, like whatever it is, whoever it is, it's absolutely worth it. I am the happiest I have ever been in my life now. And like all of that just feels like it's definitely worth it now. I think persevere, know that what you're going through is completely valid and urgent and necessary to work through and is important and above all of like the mundane things of life that we are told that we have to do every day. Yeah, I think that's it. Just do your thing and go get help and then just be happy.
Thanks, Vel. I mean, it means so much to me to have heard your story. And I was so proud and pleased when I heard it for the first time and knew that I was going to be a part of this Story Slam, because one, it wasn't a topic we've really touched on in the previous Story Slam, and it wasn't something that was really brought to the table with other submissions. But two, because I know there's so many people in our community out there who have not expressed themselves the way you were able to express yourself, and that's going to mean so much to them to see your story. My second question to you was, in what ways have you found your relationship with your family has changed over the course of them kind of like going on this journey from afar and alongside of you? And how have you seen shifts in their perceptions around issues as it pertains to mental health?
For sure. I think the more I opened up to them about my bipolar disorder, the more I felt closer to them. Like I didn't feel like I had to hide anything, and I felt like I could actually come to them with my issues rather than feeling like I was like constantly dismissed just because I knew they weren't very supportive of mental health things and things like that. But yeah, I feel like I've never felt closer to my parents, and that just like trust I think is so important. And
Yeah.
I really don't think we need to accept the huge like difference between our generations. I think it's totally worth it to talk about it and to understand more and to learn more from each other.
No,
Belle,
definitely.
I know, Belle, I just wanted to say that you're already spurring up so much conversation in the chat. Other people saying they feel the same way or they're also navigating this.
Yes,
So
that was part of my plan.
yes, I mean, I know it just must take so much to be able to share something like this that's personal on a public platform like ours. But you're right, you have to, because you want to be able to tell other people that they're not alone, right? And so this is something that you have to face and you do together. And it's just, I really, like Richard, I really appreciate you sharing it. And you're getting other people to also share their experiences. And that's so important.
Thank you so much for saying that. That means the world to me.
So we're up next is Anthony. Anthony Wing is from California. He was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and transplanted to Houston, Texas, and now resides in the Bay Area in California. Although he went on to study computer science, and he has been working in the tech industry for over a decade now, his true passion is really in the arts. Let's take a look at Anthony's story.
I grew up at an early age thinking that I'd become an artist, a shared dream known to my family and friends. All of this changed when my parents decided to move to the mainland when I was 12. With my parents' failed businesses, we were living very lean those years in a small bedroom that served as both our kitchen and living room. The word suffer came up often from my parents. Get a good job, son, so you don't have to suffer as we did. This was the real world. This became my new reality. I witnessed this firsthand, seeing both my parents working hard trying to put food on the table while sustaining a shelter and struggling to pay their credit card bills and piling up debts. I went from being a happy-go-lucky kid from the islands to a money or a conscious person. Seeing their struggle and constant reminder that I had to do better shifted my interest to a more lucrative and safe career in computer science, which led me to become a software engineer. I remember being late picking up my Illinois and said I lost track of time at work. He looked over at me and said, if a man is too busy for his family, then he's either not good at what he does or jokingly has another family to attend to. Fast forward to 2020, I had just attended a friend's funeral in Hawaii, and on the day of my departure, another close friend spoke softly as we embraced and said, don't forget you, be sure to live your life. As much as the world was changing around me, I wasn't fearful of losing my job given the industry that I was in. I knew that things on that front wouldn't change much. What I cared most about was my immediate family, my brothers and my parents. I could only observe from quarantine the lives affected and what some had to do to adapt to change. Given the pandemic craze, I guess I felt a little left out in some ways. So I looked to myself more. I decided to make some changes of my own. I started picking up watercolors again, learned to incorporate new software techniques into my process, and put out new works that tickled my soul. Even still, it wasn't enough. I would sit there staring blankly, battling constant creative blocks and questioning what I was doing all this for. What has all my training led me to? Practice for practice sake? Simply put, what is my mission? The story of my dad's journey here to America prompted me to find a connection. And in searching for that connection, it led me to the Vietnamese boat people community. That's what was missing, a community in my life. All this time, I've been cooped up in my own mind that I forgot about the people who are just like me, needing a place to tell their stories. Let them be heard and be shared. We're worth sharing. Our lives are non-fungible. That's where I want to be, a part of witnessing and telling those stories using my creativity and experiences. 2020 has reminded me that you can't expect things to change when you keep trying the same things over and over again. We evolve and adapt over time because we don't stand still as people, especially when it's something we're passionate about.
Anthony, a ton of comments about how beautiful your paintings are. This is another story that I think connects with so many Vietnamese Americans, right? Growing up, seeing our parents struggle, feeling the pressure that we have to pursue a stable job, lucrative, and really, you know, like the words of your parents, don't suffer the way that they have. Has your parents or your family seen your paintings?
Yeah, they do. It's almost kind of hard to not go noticed because I usually produce a lot of volume. And the thing is that they'll have their reactions every year. It's always like, you know, Anthony's doing his painting thing again. And and the thing that I notice that really changes every single time is the feedback itself. It seems like it gets better every time. So I think because of that, maybe I'm getting better at my craft.
Or maybe they were recognizing how talented you are.
But I mean, like with the affirmations, sometimes you know, it does kind of like there is a hint of despondency, and sometimes, you know, it's like they're unsure what what am I doing with this? You know, am I doing this for fun, or is it like, am I trying to do the whole career thing again? So there's always still that kind of hint. So. Yeah.
So tell us about like 2020, because in your story you were talking about how, you know, things were happening around you and you were kind of cooped up. And I can see also with your computer science and technology profession that you're probably in front of the computer for very long hours and you can get carried away in what you're creating. So do you remember that moment where you said, what am I doing? Like, why are not following my passion more?
Yeah, I did also mention in the video about like my friend's passing that happened as well too, that transpired before the COVID situation, and that sort of pushed me a little bit further. Like going back home to like the islands where I was from in Hawaii, kind of just gave me some remembrance of, you know, where I came from. And I guess I was like, what would my 7-year-old self do, kind of thing, So I guess I was kind of catering to that. And it's not like it hasn't pushed me before, where I've been motivated and inspired before, but I think with what transpired over 2020, I think that kind of elevated it a little bit more. And it also fueled my art as well too. Like I said, I picked up on watercolors again, and I think I've taken sort of like leaps and bounds with that as well, and just really challenging myself.
Is that one of your art pieces behind you
Yeah,
in your virtual background?
Yeah, it's a leopard. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Anthony, do you see a future where you will be pursuing art full time at some point?
I sure hope so. Yeah. With certain terms and conditions, of course. And if I were to do it full time, it's got to be something that is partly my vision. I mean, you could always work for someone else and pursue their visions, but like even with my engineering job as well too, I also had like sort of an itch to work on something else of my own. So there's always been, if I were to do this full time, it has to be something that I really am passionate about and interested in. So,
yes, I can already tell you're a creator at heart. Well, you've got a lot of people rooting for you, by the way, to see you actually pursue this even further.
Cool.
Thanks so much, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks again, Anthony. You did get to have so many comments, both in the Zoom chat and the Facebook chat.
Oh, great.
Of people. I think you have some patrons.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you got some buyers out there.
Cool.
We got Vin. Vin's got his hand up. He wants to,
Right.
he wants to make some purchases. We might have an auction later too.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Anthony, for sharing your story.
Of course.
Our third storyteller tonight is Ian Vu. She told us that she writes for fun, but she teaches for a living. She holds a PhD in French studies and does research on Vietnamese intellectual history. Her family came to the US through the humanitarian operation and settled in San Diego, California, and she currently resides in New York. With that, let's take a look at Ian's story.
In the past year, when shelter in place meant occupying the same physical and mental space over and over, I had to confront a lot of the outstanding question marks that loomed in my life. Those question marks, if I stared long enough, took form, and this is a sense that I have made. Whenever I cried to my mother about my failures, she always comforted me like this. Lúc nào cũng sẽ có người giỏi hơn con, may hơn con, nhưng cũng sẽ có người khổ hơn mình, nghèo hơn mình. There will always be someone better off than you. But we have to put it into perspective that there are also those less fortunate. Her philosophy kept me humbled and grateful. But it also permanently skewed the world for me as a spectrum. And the space that we occupied, not the best, but certainly better than most, was a space that I could never fully escape. Not when I left home for college, not as a first-generation Vietnamese American in higher education, and certainly not as an Asian American finding her place in this country. It's a space with expanding walls. Let's call it moderation. There are rules that occupy this space. Do the best you can, but don't stand out. Work hard, but be discreet. Be a model, but remember, you're a minority. These prescriptions cast me in the role of forever bystander, because speaking out and standing out would disrupt the status quo of fitting in. Dwelling in moderation paled the colors of the world, the feelings that I let myself feel, and the dreams I wanted to achieve. I'm never elated, only ever content. Not devastated, just confused. Couched in virtues of practicality and self-sufficiency, in our world that celebrates exceptionalism, moderation is actually anonymity, insignificance, invisibility. We are forgotten because we're resourceful. But didn't you know we came here with 2 bare hands, hai bàn tay trắng, white hands we say, and made something out of nothing? There's no choice but to be creative, and our preoccupation with creation is judged by the product of our work. Our lack of complaint misinterpreted for ease. Middle child of America. Standing next to my Black and brown brothers and sisters, I dare not ask, what about me? There is a recurring dream I've always had, especially as an adolescent. I'm in a crowd and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, but no one hears. I am waving my arms, throwing myself this way and that, but still, no one sees. It's as if I were invisible, unknowable, but in the dark where you can't see, there sits a girl. And in the droning silence, there's a voice. It's me. I'm here.
Thank you so much, Ian. That was such a powerful and thought-provoking piece. And personally, I felt so many of the emotions you expressed and asked myself so many of the same questions. Something that you did speak about was being a bystander and not feeling visible. In what ways do you believe, and in what steps do you think need to be taken so we can become more seen?
I think that's a really good and hard question. I think even for me, I'm constantly questioning this and asking myself how to do this, because it requires so much discomfort to speak up, and especially to speak up on someone else's behalf. And so when we're talking in situations where it's, you're the one who's being inflicted or hurt, that's one thing. But when we're talking about anti-Asian violence or any other kind of violence against a certain kind of group of discrimination, it's really hard to not look away because you think that someone else is going to speak up. And I think that goes hand in hand with speaking up and telling your own story, because you always think, oh, someone else is going to tell the story. And so going back to your question and the steps, I think it starts first with learning how to share your story and finding the things that you wish to say, whether that's something that you think is important or whether you think other people will think that that's important. I think finding your own voice to tell your narrative is first and foremost important. And then once you're able to speak for yourself, you can find that you can more easily speak up for others. And I think this is where a lot of Asian Americans fall into this category of bystander, because of that space of moderation that I described. We often don't talk about our experiences, and that makes it hard for us to, step in when it calls for our action in those political spaces.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think that's one of the reasons why your story spoke so much to me. And it connected across the board with so many of our team members at VBP, seeing that one of our main kind of like goals as an organization is really bridging that gap between generations. Oftentimes, I know my parents didn't really talk about their experiences. It's taken my whole life to piece together all these little pockets of their experience, just because it wasn't something they necessarily ever want to talk about. And it's certainly not something they want to project publicly into anyone outside of kind of like our family. So I think you're absolutely right that kind of empowering ourselves is a great first step, and kind of like tackling discomfort head on is a really great first step. Something you also touched on a little bit in your story, and that we found out from the bio you sent us, is that you do teach French at Hamilton College, and you work in academia. Could you tell us a little bit more about your experience in that space and what challenges that you found being in that space?
Well, there are a lot, and I think I'm able to say that because precisely so much thinking that I've been able to do in this past year. But French is, as we know, French, at least to a lot of Vietnamese Americans in our generation, it's like, you know, beautiful, it's romantic, it's this really wonderful language to learn. But when you actually enter the space, it's very homogenous. And in academia, I'm often the only, well, one of the few persons of color in the department and the only Asian American generally. So when I show up in the classroom, it's very surprising to my students. And I get this question all the time where they're asking me, how, like, where did you learn French, you know, and how long did it take you? Because seeing someone who is not conventionally the person they would think to speak French really makes them think that it's possible for someone to learn French from, you know, at the university level. And being Asian American in that space is also really difficult because you're trying to put in front your professorial role, the role that you worked so hard to achieve. You know, I spent 6 years writing a dissertation, like there are all these years to try to prove myself. And yet it's not the professorial role that a lot of people, not only students, see, but it's your Asian American identity. So I think what makes it really hard is how do I balance, you know, this goal that I work toward, this trophy award that, you know, I try to achieve, and also my identity. And what adds another like twist to that is how often I have to explain to my family and my friends why I'm in academia, because they're, you know, as an Asian American, why would you choose academia? There's no or very little return on investment, because you spend all these years and, you know, in terms of pay, it's not very much. And you don't get very much recognition, like you work within, there's all of these elements, but so it's, you're trying to, you know, describe your identity to your family, trying to justify all that work, and also to the space in which you work. So it's a very contentious space that I'm still working through.
You know, I just have a quick question on your submission, and it's related to what you just described. What was sort of the thought behind sharing your feelings on drawings on a chalkboard? Was that related to your background in teaching?
Actually, you know, as I was watching, I was like, this is actually very pedagogical. I definitely, you know, you within 3 minutes, like, how do I convey my materials in such a way that is effective? So there is definitely a you know, a strategic approach to this in the way that I would do with my teaching. But I hope that I was still able to convey, I guess, ideas in an effective way.
Yes, absolutely. I think listening to you talk, it kind of married together in your video presentation. Thank you so much, Yen. So next up, we actually have another teacher in the house. We have Vin Wing. He is a 90s kid who loves Jesus. He's happily married to his wife, Stephanie, and together they have 3 kids, one of which is only 2 months old. So Vin, I'm sure you're tired and sleep deprived, so thanks for being here tonight. And I know that has not stopped you from taking moments like this to share with us the Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, and to share with your 8th grade students that you are teaching in Philadelphia. So in addition to being a teacher, Vin also has a side hustle in graphic design. He loves to read books. He eats a lot of candy, and he loves watching thrillers. Me too, Vin. I love scary movies. Let's take a look at his story.
Chaos. What comes to mind? 2020 is the closest thing that I can find, because I've had a life that's been kind yet blind to the heartache of a lost country or people maligned. My story of 2020 starts in 1975 in the desert. Looking back to the past to understand the present, because it's who I am. A Vietnamese American puzzle. 4 pieces to get a last name. 45 years later, Dad remembers the day. Torn between life or death, leave or stay. 3 moments he had to say yes or no. 3 moments to keep his family and go. 3 moments that led to me right here. Whoa. The night of April 29th, people running everywhere like ants. My uncle on a motorbike, he was dad's last chance. Either back home or the black ocean expanse. What will it be, retreat or advance? To the shore he went, found a boat but knew he made a mistake, gotta go back, this can't be true. But then a radio transmission came through.
Come back right now, that's all you have to do. Because if you're captured, we will not have pity on you.
Whether or not, option 1 or option 2. Had to keep going like I was lost, and dad just cried, everything he had loved was died. No time to think of that, what to do next, decide. You give up the seat, or just get to the other side. It's all dolphin, but no happiness in sight. 2 insufferable weeks somehow made it to land alright. 6 weeks in Guam, hustling hard each night. Make a new life with happy memories, just might. 45 years later and I'm starting to get it. All the sacrifice he made in my life, I'm indebted. 45 years later and my dad can't forget it. What God made of that chaos, my friend read it. Chaos, what comes to mind? 2020 is the closest thing that I can find because I've had a life that's been kind yet blind. To the heartache of a lost country of people maligned. My story of 2020 starts in 1975, or does it? Looking back to the past to understand the present, because it is who I am, a Vietnamese American puzzle. Put a piece together last May, when George Floyd wasn't person, but pray. All I did was shake my head and say, that's not okay. Growing up, tried to fit in and make America my place. Hard to admit I couldn't empathize outside my race. This is a black-white conflict, I have no responsibility in this space. And I realize I'm not Asian cop in the way it's faced. I wanted the rhythm without the blues, privilege or oppression, I thought I could choose. Now my heart breaks when it's on the news, seeing black brothers and sisters set up and lose. Now I'm reading, listening, increasing my awareness, having hard conversations with people, even my parents, reevaluating my understanding of fairness, feeling myself to speak up against racism and caring. This May will be different, please be patient, you'll see. We're here doing this and adding it to our history. From slavery to civil rights to war refugees, puzzle pieces put together by this country. The word forever is made.
Vin, you didn't tell us that your other side hustle was rapping.
Yeah, I mean, I might start because I did make a rap video last year for my kids' graduation, doing a little rap thing.
That's amazing. So the lyrics obviously came from you. What about the
Yeah.
music itself? Did you produce it?
Well, so actually, when I heard Story Slam, I thought Poetry Slam. So I was gonna write a poem, but then as I wrote it and said it to myself, I was like, I gotta put music on this. So I just went on YouTube, found a no copyright song. The artist is Lakey Inspired, in case you're interested. But yeah, so I didn't do the music, but I did write the lyrics.
It's so good. I mean, first of all, I was like, when we first saw this submission, we're like, what? He's a teacher? But I guess it kind of makes sense. Maybe there's some creative writing in you. So tell us about, first of all, let's tell us about your teaching. So where do you teach? What grade do you teach? And are your students watching?
Yeah, so I teach in Center City, Philadelphia at Independence Charter School. Shout out to my ICS people out there. I teach 8th grade, I teach math. But I think I came into being a teacher because a lot of just gifts that I have just lend themselves to being around kids. Like I'm just a big kid. Yeah, the school's main mission is to make global citizens. And, we've had a really challenging time, because COVID has challenged us to stay connected, even locally, let alone globally. So
Yeah.
it's been challenging.
I mean, I'm sure. So you've had to probably teach remote for most of the year last year, right?
Yes.
And then you have 3 kids. So one of which we call COVID babies because your son's only 2 months.
Okay, wait. We went green and then, then we had our baby. So he's not really a COVID baby. Like a week after going green.
That's awesome. I mean, just tell us how have you been managing as a teacher, having to now teach remote and then being at home with 3 kids and everyone quarantined together? Must have been so hard.
I mean, I'm grateful that I can be home, while this baby is here. I was able to take off a month to be with my wife and my baby boy. But you know, I just teach in this room, and I've had to get used to kids unmuting and muting, cameras being on and off, public and private chatting, you know, just to communicate. I've picked up some radio DJ skills, adding music and sound bites to my Zoom lessons, you know, the bit of like YouTube teaching, you know, because you got to teach through a camera. So yeah, it's been tough. And the background to this video actually is really important to me. And that's why I've actually made it the background, because, you know, I taught my 8th graders for 5 months and I never actually met them. Wow. And then this video takes place in January, where we met up with them to give them books and other stuff. And I got to meet them for the first time and play catch with them for the first time. And it's honestly one of the most joyful moments of my life to like teach them for so long and then finally meet them. It was crazy.
Oh, wow. I'm so glad you shared that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so touching. And now is school back in person for you?
Not for me, because I teach older kids. The younger kids are back. But I am thankful to say that in June, we will get to be back in person.
Yes.
You know, the vaccine is out for teenagers now, and we're going to actually take a trip and just play all day long. So I'm really excited for that.
Oh, that's awesome. And is that your first poem that you wrote, or you've written many?
I don't know. It's not something I guess I have written other raps before, but it's not something that I like do on purpose. But, you know, I definitely love hip hop. And I think that was like a part of it too, you know, like one of the lines in my song was, I wanted the rhythm without the blues. And so this is kind of like an ode to the ways that Black culture has contributed to who I am. But also, like, there's so much more than that. And I wanted to be able to tell my dad's story in that way, because I want to be able to pass it on to my kids. And, you know, I wanted it to rhyme. I thought about doing like a kid's book, but I thought this was the perfect platform for that. So, you know, once I saw the Story Slam announced, it just seemed like the perfect time to put what I was learning from my dad in the stories with what, you know, everything that happened last May.
Yes. It's so good. So are your kids watching? Or are they in bed?
Oh, my kids are sleeping.
Well, they can watch the replay.
Yeah. No, that's the thing though. I plan on sharing with them, you know, especially when they're older, and I can explain it to them. I'm really excited about that. But I do have students and coworkers watching, so I appreciate them a lot.
Yay. Well, thank you so much. And I love that you wrapped, your submission was a wrap, because I feel like we don't have enough Vietnamese rappers out there. So it definitely caught our eye. So thank you, Vin. So before we move on to the next storyteller, because Trisha on my team is telling me that we're closing out the donation. So if you haven't donated, you can in the next minute or so. We're going to close it out. What that means is we're going to put everybody that donated tonight, in addition to the people that got the tickets and donated, you're all going into a raffle that we'll do at the very end of the show. If you decide later to donate, you can absolutely do so. Just visit our website at VietnameseBoatPeople.org. There's a donate button. So if you want to do it later, that's absolutely fine. Okay, Richard, back to you.
Yeah, and just echoing a big thank you to everyone who's donated so far. And like Tracy said, everyone who's donating, you're going to get a chance to be in the raffle. So hopefully you'll walk away with something really fun. And Vin, thanks so much for sharing your story. You had the chat going crazy. We had so many people in the chat celebrating you. I know a lot of your students were in there cheering you on. Thanks so much for your story.
Absolutely.
And it just so happens I DJ and do hip hop production, so we're gonna have to get up someday in the future. Yeah. I think there's gonna be a Story Slam collab.
Yes, Richard has an amazing record collection that you're going to have to check out at some point. Yes, we should do an event.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And can I just say, Tracy, Richard, thank you, the whole Vietnamese Boat People team. I just really appreciate what you all are doing, the ways that you are volunteering your time to collect these stories, because, you know, I thought my dad's story was like the only one. That's why I wanted to write a book or something. But the fact that you've all put it together and continue to do so, it's just a privilege for me to be able to add my dad's story and my story to it.
Oh, thanks so much, Vin. And I think that's one of the big reasons why so many of us feel connected to this organization. That's how I got involved. Actually, I had been looking for uh, some kind of podcast or oral history project about the Vietnamese American experience and my parents' refugee experience. And I actually had always wanted to interview my parents. I never done it. And then I found out Tracy had done it. And I was just like, wow, she did what I always wanted to do. And turns out there's already a great team of awesome, inspired, and amazing people already working on it. So it's been so cool to be a part of this community and have events like this where we get to welcome more of you into the community to do this with us. So thanks again to everybody who's here and a part of this. Our next storyteller is Naoko Sonoda. She's a mother of 3, and she is the owner of an online specialty tea boutique called Kita Teas. In her free time, she loves to cook, bake, eat, and run. She is also an advocate for women empowering women. Let's check out Naoko's story now.
There's a Japanese saying, ichigo ichie, which means one time, one meaning. This idiom describes a cultural concept of treasuring the unrepeatable nature of that moment, that any moment in life cannot be repeated, even if the same people got together again in the same place. Having tea is customary and an everyday ritual in most cultures. It is an opportunity for us to slow down, take a deep inhale, sit down and take a sip as we talk about the day and about life among friends and family. Ichigo Ichie also encompasses the concept of transience, that life is impermanent. From the time we are born until we die, we are given many things: love, pain, memories. People and opportunities come and go. We change, and we are a part of change. 2020 was a difficult year for most of us, and although the isolation and social distancing dimmed the light of even the brightest, personally, it was a year that marked a transformative trajectory for my life in the present and leading towards the future. Losing a job in January finally gave me an opportunity to start up a tea company that I dreamed of for the past 20 years. I was able to spend quality time with my children and husband for the first time in more than a decade. As a working parent trying to build a thriving career, I didn't have the moment to stop, evaluate, rethink, ponder about the meaning of life until it seemed that all of life came to a crashing halt. I started brewing matcha from my adopted country, Japan, and finishing with this beautiful flowery oolong from Song Na province in northern Vietnam. 2020 was a year of cathartic experiences, of which one of them was being pulled by the universe to find my birth mother. My story is that, or her story is that she fled Vietnam in 1975 with her 7-year-old daughter by way of Guam to a refugee camp in Arkansas. And it is here that she conceives of me. And eventually she would make it to Los Angeles, where there was a Vietnamese community. And she would make the hard decision to give me up for adoption, of which I was briefly placed into foster care. But I was blessed and privileged to be adopted by Japanese expats who lived in LA. And I've had so many wonderful opportunities growing up. Women all over the world make many sacrifices while their voices are overshadowed. 2020 was a year unlike any other, yet struggles help us arrive at epiphanies which set us up for a brighter tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Naoko, for sharing your story. You had such a way with words. You weaved in so many emotions and thoughts really effortlessly and poetically. Thanks so much for sharing your story with us. In your submission, you mentioned you're Vietnamese adopted by Japanese parents. Could you tell us a little bit more about your upbringing connecting across cultures. And also, I would love to hear more about the process of finding your birth mother that you talked about.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. 2020, thank you for all the work that you do, Tracy, the people behind the scenes. I know it takes a lot to, and I can't believe this is your side hustle. Because of you, I am able to share this story and search you. I mean, thank goodness for the internet. For Vin, I'm so glad you're a little older than me, so I'm not the oldest panelist. But yes, indeed. So I just like, yeah, thank you. So I forgot all your questions, Richard. Yeah, someone asked, do I know my Vietnamese name? So yes, when all came crashing down, you know, you're not ready for information and things until you're ready. And it's ironic because apparently I have a birth certificate, which was changed to the names of my adoptive parents. But I looked at it even closer, and a different document that my social service paperwork has stated, and it's my birth mother gave me a name, and it's me. And yes, I do not speak Vietnamese. I'm sorry, so I'm probably butchering that, but I asked a Vietnamese sister friend, and she said that it actually has two meanings. It means beautiful, but it also means America. So I was just like blown away. I was just blown away, and actually talked to the cross-cultural Asian references. Meat also means beautiful in Japanese.
Oh, wow.
So there's interesting, cross relations there. And then my middle name is Thi, which seems to be a common female name. And then my last name is Bui, but as in the Bui. Anyway,
No, you did good.
B-U-I?
B-U-I.
Yes, B-U-I. So someone's saying that's my name. Okay, that's great. So there you go. And then I also did 23andMe because I wasn't sure if I was 100% ethnically Vietnamese, and sure enough, 23andMe says I'm 98% Vietnamese. But I was adopted here. I grew up in the suburban New Jersey area, where I was probably one of the few Asian families growing up, and it kind of resonates with one of the writers that you had recently, who grew up in, I think, Pennsylvania. No, anyway, okay, sorry. I think like she's just like nodding her head. The author. Saigon.
Phuoc Tran.
Yeah, so
yeah, he's from Carlisle, Pennsylvania, so hardly any Asians.
Yes. But I had this kind of yet again privileged New England suburb, and then my father relocated back to Japan, and so all my adolescence I grew up in Tokyo, which is kind of like New York City, very cosmopolitan. And then I came back for college in the United States. So many cultural references have been made on the Vietnamese Boat People podcast, which also exists in kind of generational Japanese heritage as well. Like when you talked about growing up in the US and like the punishment that you receive with the books on your lap and what have you, that exists in another generation, the World War II generation of, let's say, Japan. So yeah, hopefully that answers.
No, you did. I felt like I asked 5 questions in my question anyway, so you did a good job of getting to my question. I'm also curious to learn more about how you started this passion project of teas.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I forgot you mentioned how is my search process going? That was another question.
Right.
And it hasn't, just I hope this resonates, kind of like Belle shared with her bipolar disorder, that I hope that my story, you hear it all the time about orphans finding a birth parent, or maybe someone who was in foster care and didn't get picked up by a loving family, what have you. Just so I hope my shout out to those, if you are someone like that who's listening, that love is there and you matter. yeah, so it's actually nascent. The search is nascent, but I hope that this platform will give me an opportunity. Maybe one person will be listening and then could pivot somewhere else.
Yeah, no, all it takes is one, and you just never know when you're going to make that connection, right?
Yes, thank you. And then T it's really just a manifestation of the love that I received from my adoptive maternal grandmother, my adoptive mother, really powerful women. And this is also a shout out to my birth mother, who didn't have a voice, who had to give me up. But it's the choices that women have made, who have created, enabled me to do my passion work. So Anthony, shout out to you. I was a fine art major in college. I was a painting major. I knew I wasn't going to pay the bills, so I went to culinary school after. And then culinary school, I always wanted to open up my own cafe. So whatever, a lot of, if you are young, I think Vin has a lot of 8th graders on today's call, is to continue to follow your passion, continue to do something that makes you to spark joy. Tokimeki, we say in Japanese, and tea is it for me. It makes me, it's a vessel, it's a medium, it's a vehicle to connect people. And then I did want to call out Miti flower oolong is a oolong from Vietnam. I think Vietnam gets associated with coffee a lot because, right, with the beautiful, the cafe sua, I think, I don't know how to pronounce it. But
yeah,
Vietnam also, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, you were very close.
And then, but Vietnam also grows beautiful teas, and it's also often passed through countries like China, Taiwan, Korea, the East Asian countries, because of kind of our past. The Vietnamese past has been erased. But a lot of beautiful premium loose leaf teas are still grown by ethnic minorities in the northern part of Vietnam. So it's also my shout out to really kind of restore the heritage that we have. So yeah, sorry, long-winded answer.
No, that's okay. I love that you blended the two together. And please do leave a link in the chat for anyone who's maybe interested in getting some.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Can people purchase the tea online?
Yes.
Yes, please share it.
Oh, thank you, Sally.
Sally got it for you.
Oh, awesome. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're on to our last storyteller, but certainly not least. And I can't believe it. I feel like the time has flown by, but we're on number 7. And so let me go ahead and introduce Vin Wing from Washington, D.C. His Vietnamese name is Lao. He is a comedian born, raised in Saigon, Vietnam, and he actually came to the United States when he was 16 through a scholarship to study politics, and in a country where he thought was the world's best democracy, only to question that in the 2016 election. Leo graduated from Augustana College in 2018 with degrees in politics and theater. And in college, he was a 2-time winner of the Last Comic Standing. So let's take a look at Leo's story.
Xin chào Vietnamese boat people and anyone who is listening. My name is Leo Wing. I'm a stand-up comedian in Washington, D.C. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Saigon, where I dreamt to be Vietnam's next progressive dictator. And let's be honest, where and when else is a better place to learn about politics? Of course, in the best democracy in the whole world, and especially after 2016. But that's a story for another time. Today, I would like to share to you my 2020. Wow, where to begin? Well, it started great. I began to do comedy again after a long stretch being off stage. Let's rewind a bit. I graduated college in 2018, and after 4 years of studying and hustling in a foreign country, working odd jobs, when I got my first big boy job, and most importantly, my first big boy paycheck, man, I ran to Best Buy and bought a TV and a PlayStation. The American dream. This has been on my mind since I was a little boy playing games at my rich friend's house, thinking one day I would like to get my own. And before I knew it, I fell into a comfortable trap. And 2 years flew by, 2018, 2019, with me justifying for doing nothing creatively by literally not doing anything but working and playing games. But I've come through. Though it takes me 2 years to realize that playing games does not bring me true happiness, who knew? But I did realize. So in 2020, I picked myself up, put myself out there, and signed up for a comedy show, only to realize that if you're a new comedian in a new city, you need to bring 3 to 4 people to your show to boost attendance. You know, I get that. I respect that. But I'm an immigrant. 3 people I know that will come to my comedy show are in Vietnam. Hey, mom, would you like to apply for a U.S. visa and fly 30 hours to get here to see me? Oh, no, I'm not getting married. It's just a comedy show. You realize that? How crazy that sound? But you know what? I made some new friends and I bribed them with some boom reel, like a real friend. And I asked them to come to my show. I was doing great. Show after show, I was getting in my stride and started to get booked. And guess what? God said, that's too easy. And a global pandemic came out of nowhere and all comedy shows were canceled, even to this day. Hey, sometimes the jokes write itself. And from getting rolling to isolation, from high to low, a true 2020 roller coaster. How about yours? But let me tell you, my 2021 is looking all right. I hope yours too. Thank you for listening.
Yes, yes, 2021 is definitely looking better. So welcome, Leo. First of all, when did you start comedy or telling jokes or falling in love with making people laugh? Like, how young did this start?
Yeah, but before I start, I just want to give a shout out to every person before me. I mean, if you're looking for the big finish, this is not it, man. The big finish already happened before, so don't expect much. But yeah, my name is Leo Wing. My Vietnamese name is Lao, and I started doing comedy in college when I go to a very small liberal arts, predominantly white school. So I was thinking, man, nobody's funny in this town. So if I come up and do the comedy show, if 3 people do it and I'm the best one, I got $500. So, and as a an international student, they have a lot of money back then. So it was a lit night, and that's how I got started into it. It's kind of like a bounty reward type situation. But from then, I was like, yeah, this is pretty fun, and I'm making people laugh. So that's why I keep going.
That's awesome. And so you came here at 16, right?
Yeah. I was completely sold by the American dream by watching High School Musical. I thought it was a great idea to move the movie, the High School Musical. So I thought it was a good idea to move to this country after watching it. This is so great. I could totally be Troy Bolton. Didn't happen. I moved to America. I got placed into a high school in Kansas. I didn't even know where Kansas was. Whew, I mean,
I was going to ask you if that's where you got your twang.
I have no idea what is my accent because I grew up in Vietnam. My Vietnamese English teacher, God bless them, they can't speak English. So I got to figure out some other way to learn English. So I just, YouTube, stand-up comedy. I remember learning English to like 50 Cent. I thought he was like a finance professor. I mean, he's great. But I have no idea where my accent is. So, when people told me I don't have an accent, yeah, I do. You just, yeah, that's kind of like how it is.
So we actually, Megan on our team is from Kansas.
Oh, I mean, no disrespect to Kansas, but I was coming from Saigon. No. It was like popping, and I went to Kansas. And, oh my God, what is this town?
I can imagine. Tell me like your first impression, like when you got on the plane leaving Saigon, what you imagine the United States would be like, and then you arrived in Kansas, and what was that thought?
I remember vividly the car ride home and my host family. I just looking around like, man, I just moved to Cambodia. Like, what is this place? But the people there was amazing. I've learned to love the American hospitality in the heartland. They don't give much, but all they give is their their friendliness, their heart. I remember I dropped a wallet and somebody drove it back to my house. You know what happened if you drop a wallet in Saigon? It's gone in less than 2 seconds, evaporates. So, you know, it just showed me two different worlds, and I came to embrace both.
Oh, that's great. Well, you're a natural funny guy and somebody just posted that you need to apply to America's Got Talent. Is that what AGT stands for? I don't know who posted that. Yes. So we loved watching your submission. No, we haven't had a lot of comedians, and definitely there's not enough Vietnamese comedians. So we're rooting for you. Follow that dream if it's something that you want to do more full time. And just like a real quick question for you is, are there comedians out there that you look up to or that has inspired you over the years?
Yeah, you know, like you said, not a lot of Asian comedian out there, but you know, I really appreciate the OGs who kind of like paved the way. You know, Jimmy O Yang. Before, you know, I was, when I do comedy, I want to say this because, you know, before when I started do comedy, it was a lot of cheap Asian joke, just like self destroyal, you know, and just like getting cheap laugh from people. And like after like a couple of times doing that, I wasn't feeling so good. You know, why I have to really, you know, kind of like lower myself down just for some laughs. You know, that's not worth it. That's a clown. I'm a comedian. You know, it's different. Some comedians are a clown, though. You know, I'm not gonna say anything about that. But I started doing more kind of like the way that I present myself as a kind of like a confidence, but also, you know, that speak truth to power, kind of like that's in itself is breaking stereotypes. So I want to be the one that go the extra miles and not just cashing out our personality or characteristic or stereotypes for laughs. I want to do some a little bit bigger that, you know, I'm helping to move the needle of, you know, the media perception on an Asian man and what does it mean to be, you know, a modern progressive Asian man as well. So, you know, that's all the things I took in my act, and I try to tell the story through jokes, you know, because people digest better that way. Yep, I think.
No, I love that. I think you've got a lot of comments saying they love to hear that, because you're right. We don't need cheap jokes for cheap laughs. I mean, stay true to yourself and your talent. So yeah, and you know what? Hey, don't forget to tell us if you have another show coming up. I don't know if any of the shows are virtually, but you could share it with our community, and I think we'd love to watch it.
Yeah, I'm, you know, just want to make a quick plug. So I'm on social media at Leo Win Comedy, and I'm about to drop some Asian tourist mockumentary dropping truth bombs on American imperialism. So stay tuned. I'm putting my theater and my political science degree to work. You know, May is here for celebrating.
Right on. So I know Sally's going to be on top of that. I'm sure she'll find your Instagram. Oh, see, she is so good. Wow. She is so good.
Sally, you're a star. It's literally in your name.
She's awesome. Well, thank you, Leo.
I want to say thanks again to folks who donated products, Cafe Roasters, Omsom, Red Boat Fish Sauce, Sokola Chocolates, Tantan Foods, our community partners, Visual Communications, Asian American Arts Alliance, Project Yellow Dress, the Sum Collective, Asian Cinevision, Vietnamese American Arts and Letters Association. Thanks to everybody for being our partner and contributing to this event. And just echoing again from Tracy, a big thank you to all of our storytellers. I know you're inspiring lots and lots of more people to tell their stories by being vulnerable enough to share yours. And it means so much to us. So thanks again.
For the true experience of all the stories that were just shared, I encourage you to go to our website and watch the videos that were submitted. please visit VietnameseBoatPeople.org/2021 Storytellers. And a huge thank you to the VBP team and committee that dedicated countless hours in making this event possible. They are Megan Doe, Matt Young, Trisha Vung, and Sally Nguyen.